Okay, we're starting. Is that the shame? Hey, how are you? That's with me. Hello. And Aryeh and Zahava is watching, and I just warn everyone watching online that Facebook is having problems, so hopefully the video will work, and if not, nothing I can do about it. There's leftover sushi. If you want, go take some before they give it away to someone else. I don't know, take it home. You're allowed, you're here, part of the class here. We have permission. Okay, so we're learning from Likutey Moharan Lesson Torah 5, Torah Hey. We've been learning this now for like 9 weeks or something, 9 or 10 weeks. So we're getting towards the end, and then I'll have to figure out what we're going to learn next. The nice thing about a long lesson is that you don't have to worry about what are we going to learn next week. Just have to learn that section of it. So I'll give an overview because, of course, last week we didn't have a class and I was at a wedding. It was very nice to be at a chuppah, Bezat Hashem, at your chuppahs as well. Bezat Hashem. Yael, leftover sushi, what are you going to do? Only if you're here do you get to have the sushi. Okay, so the lesson starts off, B'chatzotot v'kol shofar, the blowing of the trumpets and the blowing of the shofar, and this is connected, of course, to Rosh Hashanah and the service in the temple, in the Beit HaMikdash. And from that, Rabbi Nachman pulls out this phrase, Tzarich kol adam lamar, kol ha'olam lo nivra ele bishvili. And the person has to say, this comes from Sanhedrin Lamed Zayin, 37a. That every person has to say that the whole world was created only for me. And from that, he extrapolates that a person has to do the mitzvot with great joy. And in order to do the mitzvot with joy, a person has to have a heart that is straightened out and cleaned. But then he also says that if the whole world was created for you, so there's something lacking in the world that only you can fill, and you need to fill that gap. And also, you need to daven for other people. And he talks about 2 ways of davening for other people. There's the way of davening b'simcha, where you have joy. And sometimes you daven for somebody and there isn't joy. And you can understand from that there was a decree, a gevurah, in heaven, already given upon the person. And so the way that you have to daven for them is in a roundabout way through either a story or something else that's not exactly davening. And the example that I gave, b'diavad, I didn't realize when I told the story, was the Tolner Rebbe that came to a couple that didn't have any children, and they wanted the Rebbe to come and bless them with children. And he said, I'm really sorry, I can't daven, I can't eat in a home that doesn't have children. And they said, but Rebbe, we want you to give us a bracha to have children. He said, well, I'll come back next year, and Bezat Hashem, I'll be able to fulfill my promise that I only eat in a home that has children. Of course, they had at least one child at that point. And that was a roundabout way of the Rebbe davening for them, because there was already Gzar Din, a judgment in heaven. So how do you do that for other people? So I had, apparently I had COVID. I don't know. I lost my taste for a week, so I figured it must have been that. But I didn't even know. I mean, I got sick. I didn't realize I was sick. I thought I was going to give a class online. I didn't give a class online. And then it's been going on for like a month now. And I decided, there wasn't one Shabbos that we didn't have guests. Like even I was sick from like Shabbos, and then by Friday I was already okay. You know, it wasn't 100%, but I wasn't sick. And so I invited guests on like Sunday and Monday when I was so in such bad shape I could barely get out of bed. And Noga's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, this is the way that Hashem is going to get me out of bed. Because I invited the guests, I have to be healthy enough to cook the food. So Thursday late afternoon, I barely had the strength to go and shop. I bought everything. And Friday, somehow I cooked everything. And then I led the davening with almost no voice. And then I came home and collapsed, literally laid on the floor, like, ah! It was like after the fast. You know, we had the fast of the 10th of Tevet on Shabbos. And also I was in really bad shape after the fast. I'm not a good faster. Better at eating, better at the Purim than the Yom Kippur. And I made it through the davening, and right after davening I made Kiddush, like I brought grape juice with me to shul. I made Kiddush in shul, and I ate something on the walk home, and we had the meal, but by the time the meal was over, I was like dead, and I just laid down on the floor. But that's a roundabout way of davening for it. So then he says you have to create, what is the blast of the shofar? And the blowing of the trumpets, it's this thunder that you create through your davening. And the thunder reverberates in your brain and causes, it's kind of like ironing out the wrinkles in your brain, ironing out the bad thoughts, the foreign thoughts, he uses secular wisdom, chokhmot chitzoniyot. And what he means by that is not just like general philosophy and ways of understanding the world, but when you forget that Hashem is running the world. Like if a person says, I've mentioned this many times because I ran into this rabbi that I know well, and he's a well-known rabbi, and his wife, I hope she's healthy by now, but she was very sick, and I saw him and he said, daven for my wife. So I said, okay, give me her name. And I said, Bezat Hashem shall have a refuah shlema. And he said, no, the doctor said that's impossible. And I was amazed because this guy, all he does is teach Torah all day long, and he's telling me that the doctors say it's impossible. I said, fine. The doctors are not Hashem. I say that for Hashem it's not impossible. For Hashem, your wife can have a refuah shlema. He's like, no, just daven for her so they get to a certain point of health. I'm like, no, I'm davening for a refuah shlema. So that type of thinking is chokhmot chitzoniyot. That's not Hashem level of thinking. That's worldly level of thinking. And that's saying, well, the doctors say, and I believe what the doctors say, and it's al pi teva, according to nature, it's completely impossible for my wife to reach this level of health. Rabbi Nachman says, you're going to need davening that's like thunder. And the thunder is going to reverberate in your brain. It's going to go back and forth, boom, 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 and it's going to straighten out your thoughts. And you daven on that level, then you can do the mitzvot with joy, and you can daven with joy, and you can do what you were created for, because the whole world was created for you. Then he talks about being careful which thoughts come into your mind, and to be vigilant about it. He says, "Ma'od tzrichim lizaher lifnot et hamoach mechokhmot chitzoniyot v'machshavot zarot." You have to be very, very careful to not let these thoughts come into your head. So you're going to have a thought, oh, this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad. And the way the Yetzer Hara works is he finds one thing that you agree with. The Yetzer Hara will say, you didn't daven mincha very well. You say, yeah, I know. and it's the middle of work, and I'm distracted, and he didn't say Birkat Hamazon with the real kavana, with real intention. Like, well, Birkat Hamazon, how many times a day do I say it? And it's hard to say it with proper intention, so you agree with the Yetzer Hara. And then the next thing he says, and you also don't do this well, and you also don't do that well, and you also don't do this well. And before you know it, you're like, wow, I'm really a crummy human being. And what kind of Jew am I? I'm like worthless. He's like, you are worthless. And then sometimes you actually get to the point where you get kind of depressed from these thoughts. And then you embrace the depression. You're like, I am bad. I am bad. Find all kinds of ways of saying that I'm bad. This is all the work of the Yetzer Hara. So he says, you have to be careful. Like, this is going to happen to you. The Yetzer Hara is there for a reason. It's in order to challenge you. It's the reason that this whole world exists, is to choose to fight against the Yetzer Hara, to choose to do the mitzvot with joy. And so he says, be aware of it and fight that battle. He talks about the concept of chet and hey, chametz, and what was it? Turning chametz into matzah. Thank you. See, I forgot, but you were paying attention. All right. So he says the difference between chametz and matzah is the letter chet and the letter hey, and the only difference between them is a little tiny gap on the side. And he said, you make that gap. You break the wall of being stuck in chametz, which is sour, which is leaven, which is pride, which is rotting. You make a little hole in that, and all of a sudden you have matzah. You have, and then he talks about matzah is connected to the arguments of tzaddikim, and that when you hear the arguments of tzaddikim, you don't think, God forbid, that the arguments are actually real. Like, for example, if the Lubavitcher Rebbe, or here, the Alter Rebbe and the Vilna Gaon, so the two of them had public clashes, even though I don't think the Alter Rebbe did tell his Hasidim not to clash with the followers of the Vilna Gaon, or not to respond. I don't know if they did or they didn't, but we do know that there was a public fight between them to the point that the Alter Rebbe ended up in prison with a life sentence, a death sentence, and we have it was repealed, and the Rebbe was released, and that was the proof that Hasidus was allowed to flourish, and all of that. But here you have this public clash between these two Hasidim. These two Rebbes, two rabbis, and Rebbe. And the funny thing is, if you look at, I actually have it here, because I like to write my shopping lists on the note from Shul. This is the note in the Shul. This is from last week, Ki Tisa. So when they rip it and throw it away, I take them before and I write my shopping list. Because I consider the shopping list like a little aspect of holiness. I also give it a kiss before I throw it in the garbage. Aww. Yeah, but I like to write on the back of these. So the amazing thing here is it says here, when is the last time that you're allowed to say Kriyat Shema? So last week it was 8:55. Le Shitat Hagra ve Habal Tanya. And here you have listed on these notes that according to the method of the Vilna Gaon and the Alter Rebbe, they both agree that that's the last time that you're allowed to daven Shema. So now if you think that the two of them really hated each other's guts and they wanted each other to die, they really didn't. And this is what Rabbi Nachman is saying, that actually their argument is not because they disagreed with one another. It's to create something where you're supposed to look at the argument of two tzaddikim and find a reason to rebuke yourself. You can close the door if it bothers you. Also if it's cold. Find a way to rebuke yourself. You say, there must be something that I can fix when you see the tzaddikim arguing. Rabbi Nachman says the argument of tzaddikim is actually creating a distraction for the sitra achra, for the negative energy in the world, so that you can overcome your evil thoughts, your bad thoughts, your foreign thoughts, and serve Hashem with joy and fulfill your purpose in this world. So that's where we are in the lesson, and now we're going to continue. So now Rabbi Nachman was talking about the thunderous davening that we have to create. And we have to create it by like really being strict with ourselves and tough with ourselves and davening in a really strong way. He says, after we talked about this aspect of gevurah, which is stringency, which is toughness, כי הקול שמוציא המתפלל בכוח פוגע במוח ונעשה רעמים. The sound that comes out of a person that's davening with this high level of energy, it hits the mind and creates thunder or thunders, ra'amim. V'hem miyashrim et halev, and they straighten out a person's heart, sheyuchal lechaven betfilah, so that a person can daven properly. Ve'nifshat mi'akmumiyut, and it straightens out the crookedness in the heart and in the mind. Shekol zeu b'chinat gevurah. All of this comes from tough, stringent, disciplined. V'chein yitba'er, and now he's going to explain, shekadei sheyizkeh lekol hazeh, in order to merit to have this voice, tzarich shetiyeh lo yirat shamayim, a person has to have a fear of heaven, shehi b'chinat gevurah, which is connected to being stringent. But now he's going to explain sha'adayin ein gevurot elu po'alot leptichat hamoach. This being strict and disciplined is not going to do the work of opening up a person's mind ad sheyichlolotan, until somebody includes them bechasadim, with compassion, with kindness, b'chinat ahavat Hashem. This is connected to the love of Hashem. So he's saying, if you're trying to make a cake with all salt, it's not going to be sweet. You have to have a little bit of salt and a lot of sugar in order for the cake to taste a certain way. You can't just have all sugar and you can't just have all salt. You can't just have all stringency and you can't just have all love. So I always give the example of brushing my kids' teeth. Thank God I don't have to do that anymore. They brush their own teeth. I just have to tell them, the ones that's still at home, to brush their teeth. I don't know, the ones out of the house, that's their problem already. Hopefully they learned. So when you have little kids, they're like, they go like this. They'll hide under pillows, they'll hide under the bed. They won't let you brush their teeth. So if I was all ahava, if I was all chesed, if I was all love, I would just say, no problem. If I was all stringency, I'd be like, to my wife, grab his hands and put him behind his back and tie him to the wall and brush his teeth. And that would cause trauma for this kid. So you have to have a combination. You have to be tough, but you have to be loving. And he says that is the way to create this thunder. If you're all tough, you're not going to do it. And if you're all loving, you're not going to do it. It has to be the synthesis of the two. V'teda, and understand. Shetzarich l'shatef hagvurot shem b'chinat kol hamitpalel b'koach. You have to include the stringency, which is connected to the sound that's coming out when a person's davening with high energy. Sheyesh lo yirat shamayim, and the person has a fear of heaven, a fear of God. She b'chinat gevurot b'chasadim ahavat Hashem. This is the aspect of stringency with kindness, and that is the love of Hashem. Hainu, that is lishatef smola biyamina, that you have to bring right and left together. Et gevurot shehem b'chinat smol. So we have what is it? Yamin smol docha v'yamin mekarevet. Right, that's the phrase. That the smol docha, the left hand pushes away, the right hand pulls forward and pulls in. And that's the combination of right and left, and that's a combination of gevurot and chasadim. So gevurot, stringency, is connected to the left. The chasadim, with compassion, shehem b'chinat yamin, that are connected to the right. K'moshe katuv, as it's written in Tehillim, the gevurot yesha yamino, that with a strong hand, a strong right hand salvation will come. Hayeshuah shel hagvurah eina yechola להתגלות ולצאת מהכוח אל הפועל. The stringency, the salvation that comes about through stringency cannot be revealed and come out from potential into actuality, ela al yedei chesed shu b'chinat yamin. unless it's mixed in with compassion, which is the right hand. So imagine you have a teacher in school, and the teacher is just tough, never smiles, never has any compassion on the kids. Then the kids there will always be some kids that will learn, but they're not going to flourish. My son, Natan Chaim, when he was in the Chabad Cheder, we sent him around to all kinds of schools, and he already forgave me for that. He says, he doesn't care. But that was not a good experience. We sent him to the good old-fashioned Chabad Cheder here in Jerusalem, in Shikun Chabad, and I think he was there for 2.5 years, or at least 2 years. He spent 1 year being homeschooled, that's what we called it. He had one teacher the first year. The guy was all chesed. He was just like the sweetest guy. Just stood there. The kids could throw spitballs at him. He just smiled and he taught and he was all love. And then the next year, boy, he had the complete opposite. The guy was worse than a drill sergeant. He was so tough. So neither of them were right. I'd rather have the love than the stringency, but neither are right. You have to have the combination of the two. You have to have somebody who knows how to be tough, but at the same time knows how to be loving. And that's how you have to have the relationship with Hashem. If you want to get to this place where your davening is going to be effective, you have to have both love and stringency. Ki ikar itgalut hamoach me atimuto. The main aspect of the revelation of the mind from its being blocked, naaseh al yedei chasedim b'bchinat gilu, comes about through kindness, which is connected to gilui, which is revelation. K'moshe katuv, shem yemini, shev yemini, and he just says shev yemini, and here he continues the oter or, ad ashit oivecha hadom leraglecha. Return your right hand while I make your enemies a footstool for you. So I guess when you bring together the right and the left, then I don't know if you've ever sawed wood. You were a carpenter, so you for sure sawed wood. The way that, I was in the Boy Scouts, so they taught us in the Boy Scouts, the way that the saw works is if you push really hard, it's going to break or it's going to get stuck, it's not going to do the job. You have to be very gentle. Just go back and forth, not put any pressure on the saw, and let the saw do its work. And so what he's saying here when he's quoting this is that you're going to do the right hand and the left hand. You're going to have compassion and stringency, and then Hashem is going to do the work of defeating your enemies, meaning the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination that's trying to stop you from davening and being joyous. Harei she'itgalut hagevurot b'nitzachon hamilchama, the revelation of the stringency related to the victory of the battle, na'aset al yedei yeshiva liyamin, comes about the returning of the right hand. Shehi b'chinat chesed, which is connected to kindness. Ki kol gilui v'hashpa'a, because all revelation and bounty or influence, gam gilui v'hashpa'a hagvura, even the revelation and the influence of the stringency, hu al yedei chesed, only comes about through compassion. Kamo chen v'chen kan, and so it is here b'milchama haruchani, in the spiritual battle, she'atzadikim osim im hasitra achra, that the tzadikim are doing when it comes to the evil energy in the world, kedei shelo titkarev lemishkan hakdusha, so that it won't come too close to the holy tabernacle. Meaning, what is he saying here? These are like code words. What he's saying is that tzaddikim are arguing in order to create a cover, in order for you to be able to reach a place of joy. It's kind of like now we have a war going on, so you have suppressing, what do they call it? So suppressing fire. One person wants to cross the battlefield, so he tells the other soldiers, shoot, everyone shoot, and then they're distracted in shooting them, and he can run across. That's the battle of the tzaddikim. When you see arguments between the tzaddikim, that's essentially what they're doing. They're creating distraction for the sitra acha, in order for you to be able to, here it says here, shehu hamoach shel ha'isha Yisraeli, which the tzaddikim are the mind of the Jewish person. V'gam kshehachna'atam na'aset al yedei kol v'yirah she'em b'chinat gevurah. Okay, well, he didn't say what I wanted to say here. That they're creating a distraction for the Sitra Acha so that you can straighten out your heart through davening and then do the mitzvot with joy and fulfill your purpose in being created. So he says here that the tzaddikim are like the mind of the Jewish people. Rosh B'nai Yisrael, Rebbe is Rosh B'nai Yisrael, the head of the Jewish people. Hagam she'achna'atam na'aset al yedei kol v'yirah. How do the tzaddikim subjugate the evil inclination of the world? They also do it through their fear of heaven, like their stringency in doing the mitzvot, and the davening that they do, she'em b'chinat gevurah, that's connected to stringency, to gevurah. Mikon makom ikar hitgabrut alehem lihiztakech mehem. Here, please. Legamre. And nonetheless, the main way of overcoming them into purifying yourself completely from them, hi al yidei midat chesed, is by bringing in the attribute of kindness, of compassion, shetzarich l'shatfa ima gevurah, that you have to bring it together with the gevurah. You can't just have one or the other. V'chein milvad shituf hachasadim shehem ahavat Hashem. You want some water? Okay. And also, not just bringing in the compassion, which is the love of Hashem, but gevurot with the stringency. Shehem hakol haba miyirat shamayim, that's the voice that comes about through fear of heaven. B'chinat gevurah, which is connected to gevurah. So he's going back and forth. Gevurah chesed, gevurah chesed. Kadei sheyuchal lachdo et atimut hamoach kanal. In order to penetrate the blockage that's in a person's mind, is mentioned above. Tzarich l'shatef ha'ava ima yirah. You have to bring together love and fear. V'gam kadei sheyitaved sheyeaseh hamoach ra'amim. In order to have this thunder in a person's mind, yipaga sham hakol, where the voice, the sound that comes out from the davening is going to penetrate the mind and bring the thunder into a person's mind, ki hamoach ve'aram hem shnei afachim, because a person's mind and thunder are two opposites. Hamoach hu chasadim, ve'aram hu gevurot. The mind is chesed, and thunder is connected to gevurah, connected to stringency. And therefore, in order for there to be thunder in a person's mind, we have to bring together love with fear or awe. And then it will bring together the sound of the person's davening with the thunder, and together a person's mind. And then it will come down into the heart in order to straighten out a person's heart, sheyuchal lavo lidei simcha, so that a person can reach a place of being joyous in doing the mitzvot. Because the mind is from the right side of kindness. As it says in the Zohar, not going to read the Aramaic, mitzad hayamin moach levan kekasef. When it comes on the right hand, the mind is white like silver, bli sigim velichluch, meaning pure silver, without any impurities or anything to dirty it. Dahainu, what he's saying is here, you're going by bringing the two together. By davening with stringency and with love, you're going to basically clean your mind. And how is silver cleaned? If you've ever been to a silversmith and you've seen them melt silver, so the impurities come up to the top, and then you can clean them off, and then the silver is pure. Which is also an analogy for when a person is suffering, that Hashem, there's lots of analogies. This is one of them. That's like Hashem purifying the silver, heating you up. It's uncomfortable, but the impurities come out. The same thing with making olive oil. In order for the olive oil to be made, you take perfect olives and you crush them. And then the olive oil comes out. And in order, many times, and we've all experienced this, and some of us experience it on a regular basis, Hashem is making olive oil out of us all the time, and it's very painful. But it's only painful if you think that you should be an olive. If you know that you're supposed to be olive oil, then you're grateful for it. But that's a very hard perspective to have. And through bringing in the right side, which is connected to the love of Hashem, it's made clean like silver. From the secular wisdom, from the foreign thoughts, and from the desires. And when a person's mind is clean, then when the voice and the sound of the davening hits a person's mind, it will make this thunder in a person's mind, and it will bring a person to joy. And, there's all kinds of stories of people that were addicted to gambling and to drugs and to all kinds of crazy things. And when they really get to the point that they've broken themselves from it, and we're talking about Jewish Balei Tshuva, and they're keeping Torah and mitzvot, and they're really doing it from a sincere way, they'll tell you that they're feeling a level of joy that even if they stole $1 billion, they wouldn't have felt. Because it's something that you can only feel when you're truly connected to doing Torah and mitzvot, and you're doing it from a place of pure joy. And that's the level that he says we're trying to get to. And this is what's written after the splitting of the sea, the Red Sea. And the sea returned to its strength, it returned in the morning to its original strength. Le'etano. V'yashav hayam, and the sea returned. Hainu yam achochma. That is the sea of wisdom, meaning Hanan, Shehu HaMoach. That your brain is like a sea of wisdom. It's like the waves, and there's a whole sea, and there's all the depths of the sea in your mind. Lifnot boker, towards the morning, perusho, the meaning is kafi hamuva b'zohar, as is brought in the Zohar, da ze boker da havaham. We're talking about the morning, like the morning, not the death morning, but the morning, at the time in the morning of Avraham. Shehi nikret b'schut Avraham. That it's called that in the merit, nikra, the morning comes in the merit of Avraham. She'ishkim b'boker la'asot ratzon Hashem. So we say the Akedah every morning, and it says he woke up early in the morning in order to do the service of Hashem. And Abraham's answer is always Hineni. Here I am, present, I'm ready. It's like no emotion, I'm just like always ready, here to do your work, Hashem. V'Avraham u'b'chinat ha'ava v'chesed. Avraham is connected to love and kindness. B'chinat ha'ketuv, Avraham ohavi. As it's written in Yeshayahu, Avraham is my beloved. Avraham hu midat ahava. So here he's saying that it means Avraham is connected to love. Nimtza shelifnot boker. So then it means that when it says towards the morning, romez al ahava, hints at love. Le'etano da ze gevurot. When it says returns in the morning to its strength, to its original strength, that's gevurah. Lashon eitan v'chozik, talking about strength and power. Hainu b'bchinat ha'ketuv, that is related to what it says, kol ra'amcha begangam. The sound of your thunder comes in a rolling wave. Kamo la'ayel, as we mentioned in part 3, which we're way far away from that at this point. Shalom Aleichem. V'nit ba'er, and as it's explained, shezeu akol hayotze megvurot. This is the sound that comes out from stringency. V'pogeach begongolet harosh, and hits the skull of a person. Shesham hamoach, that's where the mind is. V'na'aser ha'amim, and then thunder is created there. Okay, so Can we make it? Yeah, I think we can do it quickly. We'll make it to the next, just to Vav here in like 6 minutes. Sorry. We'll go as far as we can. I have to stop. Okay, question from Avi. When the Rebbe says thunder, what is the Rebbe speaking about? From, what is it? Tachlit perspective. So here, we mentioned it many times in the lesson. When a person, I don't know if you're still listening, Avi, but when a person davens with a straightened out heart, by clearing their mind from secular thoughts, from a non-Jewish way of thinking, and davens with bringing together the stringency of being disciplined and the love of having kindness for themselves and another, you create thunder. That's what it means. It's not an actual thunder. You can't hear it, but you should be able to feel it in your brain. And it's like thunder, like the same thunder, which is connected, of course, to lightning, that if you were walking in the forest and lightning were to hit a tree, and the tree caught on fire, it would light you up. It would get you excited, and that's what the davening is supposed to do. Okay. לאחר שביאר שצריך לכלול את האהבה ביראה מפני שתי סיבות. After he explained that we have to bring together love with awe or fear because of two reasons. Aleph, כדי שהכל הבא מיראה וגבורה, because so that the voice that comes from awe and from stringency, יחדור את אטימות המוח, will penetrate the blockage in a person's mind. V'tzarich ahavat Hashem, and a person also needs the love of Hashem. Ki hi po'elet et ha'itgalut hamoach me'atimuto. That this activates. So it's like one. It's a funny thing. My wife once said, she read a quote. I have a bag of dehydrated water and I don't know what to add to it. So it's kind of like that. You have a bag of dehydrated gevurah. What do you add to it? You add chesed in order for it to be activated. Otherwise, you don't have this and you don't have that, and that's what takes care of the blockage in the brain. Kedei sheyetze hara me'amoach, in order for this thunder to come out from the mind, ki ha'moach ve'aram hem shnei hafachim, because a person's mind and thunder are two opposites. Moach hu chasadim. The mind is like settled, and we said before that the mind is like an ocean. V'aram gevurot, and thunder is like this very heavy, strict thing. V'lachein tzarich lichlol et yira v'ahava yachad. So you have to bring the two of them together, love and fear together. Nimsa she'ikar itgabrut hi al yedei ahava. And so we learned that the way that you can overcome the yetzer hara is through love, through ahava. Ve'yavi ata pasuk haromez al ken. So now he's going to bring a text in order to prove it, but we're going to learn that next week. And it also has like a deeper understanding, but we'll save it for next week because I have a story. Okay, so I don't know if Avi was listening, but that was the answer. Okay, and if Yael is still here, so I found a new story of Reb Zusha, but anybody that listens to my podcast already heard it. You already heard it. You heard it in shul also? I told it again in shul.
No,
that what you hear. Okay, so you'll hear it. You'll hear it here. You get a live telling of the story. It's for Aryeh, because Aryeh doesn't listen to my podcast, but everybody he knows apparently listens to the podcast, like anywhere in the world. He goes to Australia and they're like, hey, you know this guy Barak? He's like, yeah, we listen to his podcasts. It's funny. Rabbi Gestetner travels around, everywhere. They either know me from the shul or they know me from the podcasts. He'll say, I live in Jerusalem. They're like, do you know Barak Holman? He says, I don't know if it's true, but he says this all the time. He's like, Barak Holman? But I did have somebody stop me on the street on Friday night. I'm walking. It was a group of ladies. And one of them says, you're Barak Holman from the podcast. I'm like, oh, yeah. What's your name? So they tell me their names. Then I say, I'm Barak. And they're like, we know, duh, we listen to your podcast. They're like, such an honor to meet you. So it's very funny for me because, I sit in my office, I do all this, and I never meet these people. I know I didn't tell the story yet, but okay, Avi's still listening, good. Avi, you can send me a message if I didn't explain it well. Yes, I'm a celeb. When Yael starts putting up pictures of me, you know that I'm really a celebrity. I did mention on Shabbos, you were there on Shabbos, you were there, you were the expert, we didn't know where Kate Middleton disappeared to and turned into a whole discussion. Okay, so the story of Reb Zusha. So there's a tavern keeper, and these Russian soldiers come into his tavern after winning some battle. They come to refresh themselves, and they start drinking and eating, and he realizes, okay, this might not work out so well for him. So he says, guys, you got to pay before you eat. And they're like, don't worry, we have plenty of money. They wave the money in front of his face, and at a certain point he runs out of whiskey, and they want more whiskey. He doesn't have any more whiskey. So they get angry. They start breaking plates, they start breaking glasses, they start breaking the tables, and he realizes, and they threaten to burn down the tavern and to kill him and his family, and he realizes, okay, this is not good, I have to get help, and he runs to Reb Zusha's Beit Midrash. He gets there, and the Chesidim say, what do you want? He says, I have to see Reb Zusha. They say, no, it doesn't work like that. You got to make an appointment, you come back later, lots of people want to see the Rebbe, he's got to sit and learn. He can't be bothered by every person that comes in. He says, no, you don't understand, it's a matter of life and death. My tavern could be burned down, we could be killed, God forbid. And Reb Zusha overhears the two of them, overhears the Chesidim and the tavern keeper, and he says, let him in. So he comes in, and Reb Zusha says, no, what's going on? He explains to them that the Russian soldiers are there, they're making a mess, they're breaking everything, they're threatening him. So Zusha says, this is important. He puts on his coat and he tells the Chesidim, get my wagon ready. And he has like one little old horse, and they're going to the tavern. It doesn't take too long to get there. They get to the tavern, sure enough, they see like complete chaos. Like tables being broken and drunk soldiers and windows breaking. And the tavern keeper says, you see? So Reb Zusha simply walks into the middle of the tavern, and no fear whatsoever. And the soldiers are a little surprised to see this old little Jewish rabbi standing there. And he looks at them and he says, V'tein pachtechal kol ma'asecha. And put the fear of God into all of your creations, which is what we say on Rosh Hashanah. And probably Yom Kippur, I don't know, but I did look it up in the Machzor, because I remembered it from the davening. So they stop for a second, but then they go back to their craziness. And then he says, V'tein pachtechal kol ma'asecha. And he says it even louder. And now they all stop and they look at him. And he says it again, and they start shaking out of fear. And he says it again, and they start running for their lives as if the tavern caught on fire. They're tripping over one another. They're trying to break down the door. They're jumping out the windows. In the meantime, their officer came back from the battle, and he knows the soldiers are in the tavern, and he sees them running in all directions like madmen. And he goes over and tries to stop one, and he runs away, tries to stop another one, he runs away. So eventually he shoots his pistol, and they all stop, and he gets them all lined up. And he goes to the first one, he says, what's going on here? And he's like, Pach, Pach, Pach. He's like, he goes to the next one. He can't speak. He finally finds one that's calmed down enough. He said, what's going on? They said, well, we started abusing the tavern and the tavern keeper. And then this old Jewish rabbi comes, and he says something in Yiddish or Hebrew. It started with Pach. And we were so scared, we were running for our lives. So he says, you're a bunch of undisciplined hooligans. I can't win a battle with soldiers like this. He brings them back to the tavern, has them fix everything they possibly can, clean up the mess, and of course, pay the tavern keeper for all of the damage that they did. And he told them, you are never to go into a Jewish tavern again. I need soldiers that can win a war. This is no way to win a war. And that way, the tavern keeper was saved by Reb Zusha. And what can we learn from this? We can learn in belief in the tzaddikim, the power of Hasidic stories and to also not be afraid. Bezrat Hashem. Sometimes easier said than done, but Bezrat Hashem. Okay, Yasher Koach to the two of you for sticking around, and for everybody, on Facebook, sticking around. We'll play a little nidgun and continue next week. Bezrat Hashem. La 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 la.